Hello, John. Good to
Welcome.
see you again.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It feels very much like home. This has been your home for a while.
Yeah, just over 5 years now.
And I've got to say congratulations, I think, in terms of your Portuguese language certificate. Is that right?
Oh yes, that was a challenge. It's essentially about the language level of a 12-year-old. It's not that hard. And I think it's only polite to learn the language. But I did it like a cramming course. 38 days, 4 hours a day, 2 hours homework, which always took me 4 hours to do. But a continuous assessment, so I found that a bit easier. But it allows me to, after 5 years, to apply for the passport now.
So while we're on that subject, how did you come here then? What was the mechanism that got you out here?
Well, a bit of luck really, because I was on the old pre-Brexit days.
Of course.
Treated as a citizen and could have free movement. So we got under the wire there, so it didn't have to go through all the hurdles you've got today.
Oh,
So much easier. Still as bureaucratic, but it was easier.
And so the landscape, I guess, has changed considerably now, isn't it? I mean, how would someone, if they did want to move here, what would be their options?
Well, really, the fundamental thing is to decide where you want to be taxed. If you can decide that, then we can work out which is the best visa route and if there are any tax breaks available as well. So, let's say you want to be here full-time and you can come now. Well, the D7 visa is certainly worth exploring. It's rather modest costs. For one individual, it's only essentially showing an income that comes in from abroad about the national minimum wage, which is €850 a month, so not too difficult.
And that can include, I suppose, a state pension, something like that kind of?
Dividends, pensions, rents from abroad, so not too difficult. And for a second person, another 50%. So really, if you've got about 12,000 a year coming in, and that's about the top of the state pension these days, then that's enough.
Oh.
It's not enough to live on very well, but it's enough to qualify.
But you could get here, yeah.
Yes.
And obviously you want to make sure that you've got a little bit of a cushion, I guess, because obviously things go up and down, prices increase as we've seen here, like property.
Well, I think the people who we tried to get on with the job and not procrastinate, they have not done well out of this because they assumed that what qualifies today for them would be relevant when they finally come, say 4 or 5 years later. Now, we used to satisfy that with the golden visa because you could spend 500,000 on a property and that in itself would qualify. But they've changed the rules there. They've not cancelled the golden visa, as some people say they have. What they've done, they've removed property as one of the options on the menu.
Okay.
But there's still the funds. There are several ways of doing it as well. If you want to open a business and employ a various number of people, that might be something you want to do. But the popular one is to buy a fund, and you only then have to come essentially 7 days a year.
Oh,
and after 2 years you renew it again, and after 5 years you can apply for a more permanent visa, a residence card, or in fact, as I'm doing, I'm going for the passport.
Okay.
Because I think long term, the passport stands me in greater stead throughout the whole Schengen area, whereas just a residence visa isn't quite as good.
So what's the deal with the funds? Are they, I mean, do they provide there's a set selection of funds that you can invest in, or is it more open than that?
I've looked at about 30 of them. They've got to be sanctioned by the Bank of Portugal.
Okay.
So they've got a lot of regulation around them. I used to be in that business for 50 years, as you know.
Yes.
So I've been a bit hypercritical of some of them, which I think are hope more than experience.
Okay.
And there are some that you would put your money into. There are some fun ones which actually I think will actually do well. But when assessing those things, your first question is, will I get my money back? And then, will you make a profit?
Yeah.
So we're fairly careful about the ones we are recommending at the moment.
So does that mean, therefore, that your money is tied up for a certain amount of time?
Yep. You're stuck there from 5 to 8 years.
Okay.
Somewhere in that range. It's difficult to do a 5-year scheme and expect after 60 months to finish, because that's if it's a good investment, that's unlikely to work.
Yeah.
So make sure you know how long it's going to be tied up for. That will help with your planning. But the benefit is that you can freeze the current legislation in time, so you know eventually you'll achieve your residence objective, your visa objective.
Because things are changing, aren't they? Like you said earlier, was it 4 big changes in 5 years? Is that right?
Yeah, major changes.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of those changes, though, are to do with the tax status you have, rather than the visa side. The visa side has been more or less consistent. They've removed a few things. I mean, you can't put a substantial amount of cash at the bank as one thing you could have done 2 years ago. But so they're simplifying it, and I think Brussels doesn't like the idea of essentially selling a passport. So some jurisdictions have got into trouble on that. You know, Malta and Cyprus and Greece, for instance, they offer similar things, but one would worry about how sustainable those things are. Portugal is still, I think, your best bet for moving. And certainly, okay, I'm biased, but I don't want to be cold again.
As you know, we're here on a semi-permanent basis now. It's just a marvellous experience. You sort of pinch yourself. What a wonderful place to be.
Well, there are some, I mean, it's not just about the tax and the money and everything else. It's the quality of life here. I mean, as we get older, you realise that wealth actually is health. That's your first priority here. The system here works.
Yeah.
The cost of living here is still, despite some of the rises due to the COVID effect, despite that, I was in London last week. The prices, I thought they were going to do finance on the beer. You know, it was getting really sillily expensive. I find our net spendable income here is way, way up compared with if we stayed in London.
So if you are interested in relocating, I'm going to leave a QR code on the screen, and you can just use your camera app to open the link and follow that through to John's website, or you'll find the link in the comments and the description below. John, thanks for your time. I'll tell you what, fancy having a little Madeira wine?
Excellent. Let's go now.